Okay, continuing this conversation, Betsy is still with us. Also with us, joining us is Ed Martin, President, Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum. Thank you for being here, Ed. Also, Faizan Sayed, Executive Director of the St. Louis chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAR, St. Louis, CAR, STL. And then Raymond Chandler, Chairman, Missouri Federation of Young Republicans. Faizan, I'll start with you. You started a Facebook page. You hosted a rally. You're calling for the city to do more to welcome Syrian refugees. Why? What is your motivation for wanting Syrian refugees in St. Louis?
When I was in middle school, we learned about an incident that happened in 1939 when the SS St. Louis sailed from Europe to the United States. And that ship carried over 950 Jewish people trying to flee the Third Reich, trying to flee World War II in that area. Because of the anti-Semitism in this country, because of the rhetoric going on in this nation, those people were turned back. And over 258 Jewish people lost their lives in the Holocaust. When I witness 11 million people internally and externally displaced, when I see hundreds of thousands of people fleeing for their lives, not fleeing poverty, not fleeing famine, but fleeing with their children and their clothes on their back, asking for a new home to live, I cannot live in a country where we repeat 1939. And I do not believe in coincidence. I believe in destiny. Why is it that ship was named St. Louis and we live in St. Louis? Perhaps that is all part of a larger plan, and I hope to do whatever we can to really encourage our elected officials and the community to not repeat history, not make the same mistake, but to learn from history, learn from our mistakes, and welcome in these refugees.
What response have you gotten from your peers, from elected officials?
The response has been overwhelmingly tremendous from all different ethnicities, all different races, all different religious types of people as well. In fact, the Board of Aldermen passed Resolution 108 recently that actually encourages the president to bring Syrian refugees to the United States and in St. Louis. Our goal is now to expand this movement into other cities as well, to let our elected officials know that Americans do want these refugees to come in. They do not just want to watch the nation destroy itself on CNN. They do not just want to watch people lose their lives, lose their homes, and they do nothing about it. That's what makes America great. Lindsey Graham, he said that either we let these refugees in or we take it down. And he's referring to the Statue of Liberty. This is a country built by immigrants. This is a country that always lets in refugees when there's crises happening. When we see this happening, how can we be the nation that lets in the least number? Only 1,500 so far. Now the numbers have increased slightly, but that is really missing the gun. That is not the American spirit. That's not the America that I know.
Of course, Ed, we just heard Donald Trump say that if he's elected, all Syrians are going home. Not everybody feels, they might be as passionate as Faizan, but they don't have the same opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Faizan tells a wonderful account of a moment in history. It's very important. I think it's worth understanding that we ought to have compassion. This is what we see on the TV. It's haunting. But we also have to make smart decisions about the interests of ourselves and our country. You know, I was thinking about, my wife and I have 4 young children, and we make decisions about our family, when we can do things, spend money, make decisions, maybe have more children, adopt children, whatever it would be. So what I would say very clearly is this is a problem that is in the backyard or the side yard of Europe. It's in the side yard of a bunch of countries that should step up. We've stepped up. America is the most generous nation in the history, most generous group of people in the history of people. So we should not apologize for the following, what I would say, we can't afford to take more refugees. We can't afford to take more immigrants. We have problems, well, with all due respect, in the city of St. Louis. Put aside the refugees and visit the north side. Put aside the refugees and visit the south side. We have people that are homeless, without jobs, with not enough income, with problems in mental health. I think it's an absolute sort of fallacy or a mistake in thinking to say, to be compassionate, we must welcome others. And by the way, on the Syrian question, we have to have two very national interests, 2 questions. Will the people coming assimilate? This is a serious question. They're having this question in Europe. In Europe, the Bishop of Hungary said they're coming across here and they're hostile to our way of life. That's okay when you're hostile to the way of life, when you come, if you're willing to assimilate. That's one thing. And the second is, do we have national security questions about them? And that's a fair thing for a nation to say, any nation should say, but this is I will say it's a disastrous moment for the rhetoric to say, if you care, you must have refugees. I think we all care. We all want to do more and help people. And by the way, America sends more money and aid, but adding refugees to the St. Louis community, I mean, the Bosnian situation did work well, But that was a moment where we thought we could afford it. And I don't think we can afford it right now in our community. And I think most people are responding, frankly, to politics and are saying, we're not seeing enough good things happening in our life. I mean, let's solve our own lives before we add to our family and try to figure out how to solve their lives.
Betsy, there are problems on the north side, the problems on the south side. Can we do both?
We can do both. I mean, we want to keep the neighborhoods vital. We want to keep schools open. We want to bring in schools. We know that through the St. Louis Public Schools, they've done a great job through the Naheed Chapman Academy. They now have 300 of the kids that are learning to get assimilated, and then they go into the rest of the public schools. And they're keeping schools open, taxes going up,
no, but
activities.
Our schools are failing our kids. I mean, our St. Louis public schools are failing mostly black and brown kids that are here. So to say that they're somehow assimilating other people, I agree with you. They do a good job. People work hard. We have great teachers. They're trying.
Right.
But our system is failing thousands of kids every year.
Could our system not benefit from just a greater number of people in it? If we had more people in the city of St. Louis where we now have currently vacant homes or vacant lots?
Most of the people that, I mean, a lot of people that can are getting out of the city to get to places where the schools are better. In fact, the Bosnian community, I lived in the city, the Bosnian community is getting out of the city into the county. They came through the city. You talk to Bosnians, I mean, my friends too, they say, we love the brick buildings, we love the entrepreneurial spirit, but now they say, we're not staying, the schools are terrible, we're getting out. So again, let's acknowledge that when we can, it's wonderful to welcome people, but right now, we have in America, our wages are depressed for working people. When you bring more people here, by the way, look at the refugees, look at the pictures of them. They're mostly young men, and they're mostly moving, for fear their life is fine, but they're mostly moving from a place where there's nothing for them to places where they think there's more. And by the way, most of the places they're moving, including America, end up giving them services and goods more than the places they're coming from. Again, not a bad thing, but we shouldn't pretend it's free to us to do this. We're not, again, our wages are down, our employment number of people in the workforce is as low as it's ever been. I think it's time to get our house in order and Europe, by the way, should solve this problem. Last summer, millions of immigrants flooded across from Mexico into our country because we said we're not going to enforce a border. Europe is not enforcing a border. The Schengen Compact and the European Union says no passport, just travel wherever you want. Well, they're paying a price for trying to maintain their nations, but I think this is kind of a problem that we have to help them work through, but I don't know how adding people to our community helps.
Well, I think first, Ed isn't an economist, so I don't know if he can really speak to the economic impacts of what they will or will not happen. Historically, what we've seen is when you have a refugee population, and in studies done by different universities, then in the short term, yes, it costs the country some financial assets to take care of these people. But in the long term, they actually help contribute and they actually help build the communities as well. And this is something that we also have to look at. But also on a larger scale, when it says that America has been sending aid to these people, that's true. But also the United States has been responsible with some of our policy to actually create the crisis in the first place, such as destabilizing Iraq, not actually enforcing red lines in Syria, and that has helped to foster the situation of refugees. If we can spend hundreds of billions of dollars
of President Obama's foreign policy is welcome. I think it's very helpful.
Let me just finish, please. Let me just finish, please. So if the United States can spend hundreds of billions of dollars destroying a country, creating the crisis, bombing it, sending military and this type of aid, then we should be able to spend a small fraction of that fund.
Raymond, I want to get you in here. Is this something that it seems like Republicans are against? Is there a fear in the Republican Party that immigrants won't vote for them?
I think the questions that Ed brings up are the questions that need to be answered first. Can we bring the refugees in and make sure that we're secure, that we're not bringing a terrorist or a criminal element in? I think there's a 13-point screening process to do that. I think if you talk to the silent majority of the Republicans, I think they understand that when America was created, we are, created by immigrants, created by the diversity of culture and ideas that immigrants bring in, and refugees would bring in. And when we are the most prosperous country in the world, and have this prosperity and have that position, it almost creates a slight moral obligation to open our arms to refugees during a humanitarian crisis like this. Yes, there will be sacrifices we'll have to make. There may be costs to it and things that the government and the people will have to bear. But I think the American people, and especially the St. Louis people, would be willing to make those sacrifices to help people in a situation like this.